Welcome, everybody. This is our Early Learning Advisory Council special webinar. And let's move to the next slide. Oh, so we have a special webinar today. It's a short meeting, and for our agenda today, it was emailed out to everybody. But here it is. We're going to do some quick welcome and introductions. We're going to go over the FSK recommendation report, staff qualification workgroup updates, and we're going to have a ELAC orientation. It's very high level. It'll be short. It'll be for new members, and current members are welcome to stay. Otherwise, you're free to leave around 11:25. And we can go to the next slide. Let's do some quick introductions, and just for the sake of time, because I see we have a lot of members today, well, 25, yeah. We're gonna do them in the chat. So please put your name, your role, your location, and what's your why? Like, what's one reason you do the work that you do or keeps you showing up every day? And I'll get started. My name is Marlene White. I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at DCYF. And I'm actually right now in Hoodsport. What's one reason I do the work I do? You know, I actually came up with this question, and it's because we were at a provider supports subcommittee meeting last week, and there was so much engagement from both DCYF staff and then also members around different topics. There was a lot of great feedback from providers, from childcare providers, just saying, thank you so much for listening to this. I think that the topic that I'm thinking about that really stood out to me was like pre-licensing. And I just thought, yeah, this is why I'm here. I'm really enjoying like working with people that really truly care about constituents and the work that we do. And the childcare providers that support our children in Washington. So that's my why. So let's hear all of your sappy whys in the chat. Supporting children, I see from Diana, thank you. Yeah, and advocating for parent caregiver voices in Washington State. Emily says community engagement lives into DCYF's values, and that's what drew me to this agency in the first place back when it was created. Courtney says investment to our children. Melissa, advancing the public good. Qatar, I think I'm saying your name right. If not, please let me know. Says, I'm a mom who cares about an equitable early learning system in Washington. You're in the correct place here at ELAC. Let's see, I'm gonna skip through some of these. They like move around when people are putting in the chat. So I'm like, ah, pretty good. Advocating for others, yes. And you know, I really thought about like at that provider supports meeting, like, wow, I'm like so lucky to be here where I'm at, and I work with such passionate people. So I just thought, what is your why? Why do we show up every day? Yeah, so thank you, everybody. You're welcome to continue putting your introductions in the chat, and I'm putting them, oh no. I'm gonna just write them in the chat if we move along to the next slide, so it's on there. All right, so next up we have our first presenter, our Early Care and Education Access Project Manager, Diana Stokes. And Diana's gonna provide us an overview of how the recommendations for the FSK report were aligned with the Early Care and Education Access and Living Wage Implementation Plan, and some other highlights that helped inform and shape the report. So I'm going to pass it over to Diana, and go ahead.
You mentioned being back on Zoom, and I'm like, wait, where is my share screen again? Give me just a moment. Oh, sorry. Okay, you should be able to see the PowerPoint now. I will try to monitor the chat as we go. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask them. As Marlene mentioned, my name is Diana Stokes. I'm the Access and Living Wage Manager within the Early Learning Division here at DCYF. And as Marlene mentioned, I'm here to share more about the Fair Start for Kids recommendations report and how it connects to our Access and Living Wage plan. So we'll talk about what the recommendations found in the Access and Living Wage implementation plan, how that helped to shape the Fair Start for Kids report recommendations, and then the next steps when it comes to the report recommendations. So you may recall that Nicole joined the executive meeting last month and shared more about the Access and Living Wage recommendations, but I recognize not everybody was there. So I'm going to provide some high-level information before we really dive into the report itself. As we move forward, just recognize that there are 4 categories or 4 goals when we separate our recommendations. These goals include families have access to high quality early care and education that meets their needs, supporting a thriving early care and education workforce, leveraging data and aligning our systems. And then the 4th one is including adequate facilities for expansion of the early care and education system. On these next several slides, there are a lot of words. I am not going to read each one. I've sent these slides to Marlene so that these can be distributed out to everyone. But these all show the different goals, the objectives, and then the recommendations. In the full implementation plan, you'll be able to find the strategies of how we'll be able to implement these over the next 10 years. So we really start our first goal with the objective that we are going to create a child care guarantee for all of Washington families who need and choose to access care. And this will be done in many different ways, including making changes to the income requirements for working connections, having a co-payment scale that preserves access and ensuring affordability, and really working to maximize how we use the Child Care Development Fund, which is also CCDF. The second objective is reducing barriers to promote equitable access for families. And so this is about increasing access for families, ensuring that they are aware of working connection as well as the benefits, and ensuring that we have a streamlined online application and eligibility determination process that supports multiple languages for our families. We also want to increase access to before and after school programs, summer programs, and evening and weekend care hours to ensure that all families have access to the care that they need. Additionally, we want to support inclusion of children who have different needs and different requirements for care. So this includes updating our special needs rates to ensure that services are not delayed while awaiting eligibility, because we recognize that it takes a very long time to get a diagnosis, if a diagnosis is provided at all. We want to support providers with increasing access to the resources to better serve these children. And then we also want to expand supports and coordination to better support children and minimizing the disruption for care. As we go into supporting a thriving early care and education workforce, obviously we know that we need to ensure that child care providers are receiving living wages and benefits to honor the work that they do. This will really come through with the cost of quality care rate model being accepted and fully funded to ensure that working connection rates are reflected to serve the true cost of high quality care. And then also having, working with LNI to have a wage scale that includes a wage floor for all employees in different bands. This one has a lot of words, so my apologies if the text is small. But as we think about supporting providers, we know that there's the licensing requirements, but also there's different supports needed to deliver the high quality care that families need. So this includes having an infrastructure to better support this, anywhere from state approved trainers, early achievers coaches, DCYF staff. This includes licensing, with ECAP, early achievers, working connections, our raters for early achievers and beyond, ensuring that trainings and resources are linguistically and culturally aligned to support our providers and our families. We want to increase access, ensuring equitable access to our grants, various enhancements and incentives that are available. And we also want to make sure that as we support children who have special needs, getting more access to care, that our ECE professionals are also receiving access to trainings and professional development opportunities to better support those children. And then continued partnership with the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges as we think about increasing access to various pathways, navigation supports, and innovative practices to meet the needs of our diverse and growing workforce. Recognizing everything that has happened over the last several years, in particular with the pandemic and the lack of mental health support, it is our goal to increase relational health and infant and early childhood mental health support for children and providers in our diverse settings. So recognizing that there was impact this last legislative session, so expanding and growing out our mental health consultation, as well as continuing to explore additional strategies to support the community needs. As many of you are probably aware, there's a lot of different data and systems that we use as an agency, as well as across the state. And our goal is really to leverage these different systems and really to align things to be easier for everyone involved. This includes making sure that our data is current and accurate, because this is really going to guide decisions and increase accountability for us as an agency. We want to ensure that we have integrated and inclusive classrooms. This includes making sure that there are less inconsistencies and contradictions among standards, thinking about graded funding and beyond. And then ensuring that we are pairing resources with accountability that supports high quality, anti-racist, anti-judgmental implementation of our programs and resources so we can better support the families that we serve. Lastly, when it comes to the access and living wage recommendations, we have a facility. So in order to increase care, we recognize that we need to better understand the needs of early care and education facilities. This includes maximizing the capital budget investments in the Early Learning Facilities Fund. As you may have seen in this last legislative session, there was an increase by about $10 million to continue the ELF grant application opportunity. And then secondly, DCYF is currently doing a facilities exploration project to better understand the needs and support for opening different facilities or expansion. And so this really ties into objective 4.2 and 4.22, where we'll have an actual implementation plan related to facility expansion, recognizing the technical assistance support, startup costs, and anything else that is identified during this work. So that was a very fast overview of the recommendations that are coming forward. I will be sharing more about these in depth at the next ELAC session. So if you're not able to read through all of those, just know I will be returning next month to share more about this. But I wanted to showcase those recommendations first, because that is really our roadmap here at DCYF on how we're going to increase access to affordable, high-quality early care and education and uplift the workforce with living wages and benefits. So in the next several slides, we'll review changes that were made in the Fair Start for Kids Act report recommendations, including opportunities to better align the language used in the Access and Living Wage Implementation Plan. So previously, the Fair Start for Kids Act included 4 priorities. Language was shifted from priority to goal to better align with the language in the Access and Living Wage Implementation Plan. Additionally, as an agency, we are child first. So we shifted this one, and this is why we are leading with goal 1 as being focused on improving childcare access and improving the affordability for families, which includes our childcare subsidy. So we combined 2 of the previous priorities, which on the left you can see as priorities 2 and 3 to better align with the Access and Living Wage Implementation Plan. Oops, sorry. And then the last one then is just showing that we now have 3 goals versus the original 4 priorities that was included previously. So as I mentioned, we originally had priority 1, which was the recommendations to increase early care and education workforce compensation. This is now goal 2, to better align with DCYF's operation principles and that we are child first as an agency. Changes to the recommendations here were made to better align with the ECE Access and Living Wage Implementation Plan, and transitioning to the cost of quality care model was moved to a different goal. So we kept it, but we just shifted it over. So on the left, you will see the original recommendations, and then on the right, you will see the new recommendations as they are put forward. And then what was originally priority number 2 is now combined with goal number 1, as we think about child care subsidy rates as a method to increase affordability for families. Changes to these recommendations were made to better align with the implementation plan. We really wanted to strengthen provider supports and workforce compensation, so we moved that to the compensation goal of the report. Approving affordability for families was moved to access and affordability. And the recommendation on ensuring equity for mixed status families is something that DCYF already supports, so we removed it from the list of recommendations. If you are not aware, DCYF conducts a market rate survey, which is combined with a cost of quality care survey every 3 years. Based on this past legislative session, this will now be conducted every 2 years. This survey provides DCYF information on the cost of operating childcare programs with things such as staff wages, the materials, overhead costs, and so much more. As this is something that DCYF already does, this was removed as a recommendation. And I'm just pausing as I see the comment from Lois. Thank you. I will come back to that, Lois, as we keep coming through here. The improved childcare access and affordability with families. This again has been combined with increased childcare subsidy rates, and this is now goal number 1. Changes to this recommendations here were made to better align with our access and living wage implementation plan. As Working Connections eligibility is currently determined by state median income and is not based on federal poverty level, so we tweaked the language on eligibility criteria to reflect current practice. And then also to support the mixed delivery system of early learning that we have here in Washington State, the recommendation of improving funding models for a sustainable childcare system was enhanced to include a nod to enabling integrated and inclusive classrooms. This is work that DCYF will be doing with OSPI as we work to best support family choice and access to care. The recommendation on ensuring equity for mixed status families, again, is something that DCYF already supports. So we removed it from the list of recommendations here, and then we continue on as well. The last recommendation that was put forward was supporting early care and education professional development opportunities and the substitute pool. For the changes here, there were some things that were addressed originally. So things that are part of the current draft include instituting a co-payment scale that preserves access and assures affordability for families. And I am realizing this is the wrong information, so my apologies on this side of it. But originally there was expanded access and flexibility for professional development. You will hear some of this from Gretchen later as she talks about 1648. And then we have also in the Access and Living Wage Plan included information about how to expand access for professional development for things that are culturally and relevant to the program. Improving affordability and funding for training. Many of our trainings are offered at no cost through our partners. So this is something that we already do. Ensuring high quality training standards. This is something that DCYF already implements for our state approved trainers, including having expertise in the content areas that they're training on. When it came to improving substitute pool transparency and accessibility, this is a statewide program. This is something that can be expanded so that more individuals are able to take advantage of this program. And there was recommendations to sharing what happens to the funding if it has not been spent. And this is something that would go back to the state. And then, so we will continue to work harder to ensure that this funding is spent each year. And then the recommendation for empowering providers to build and manage their own substitute pool. This is a practice that can already be done with providers. Your subs would then be part of your staff, and you would just use them as needed. And then because this is part of the business, it is not supported by DCYF at this time. So going back to the comment from Lois about would the department consider a partnership with colleges or universities who focus on early learning in or outside of Washington that offer a fully online option? And then if so, can scholarship funds be used to pay for those classes? So at this time, all of our scholarship options that are from the state board or through Child Care Aware and our Early Achievers grants are specific to Washington State so that funds stay within our state. However, individuals that do seek education in other programs, they do have that option for it to then still be verified for their education requirements. As to having actual partnerships with different colleges and universities, that is something that would need to be looked at. So I'm just going to ping Gretchen to take that back to her team and to take it for further consideration as the work group for 1648 moves forward. And again, she'll be sharing about that here shortly. When it comes to some of the recommendations that were included in the report, some of these were considered out of scope for the report. Scope for the intention of the context we're using here, it's inclusive of our reporting authority and any relevant statute, rule, policy, strategic plan, and our operating principles. So some of these have been addressed on the other slides, and then these will be an opportunity to see these recommendations together. So when it comes to the first priority, this was the compensation piece. One of the recommendations was having parity with school district employees. This is not something that we are working towards. Instead, we are working towards having the cost of quality care that will get us to the living wages and benefits for providers. A second recommendation was to utilize merit for direct workforce incentives. This is not a capability that merit supports at this time with having direct incentives to the workforce. With the Access and Living Wage Plan, we will recognize that working connections and subsidy is the driver to supporting living wages for providers. One of the other recommendations listed was having a legislative commitment to fully fund early learning. As an agency, we are not able to advocate for funding. We will continue to submit decision packages to request the as appropriate, and will support the investments made in each legislative session as we continue a phased-in implementation of the Access and Living Wage Plan. When it comes to improving funding models for a sustainable child care system, establishing agreements on quality care funding metrics to strengthen advocacy for adequate funding levels is considered out of scope for DCYS. We are not able to advocate for funding, and that child care programs are actually individual businesses. And so the statement on establishing agreements for quality care funding metrics and strengthening advocacy, adequate funding levels was removed from this recommendation, as we do not oversee individual businesses, and we are unable to advocate for this funding. Lastly, one of the recommendations was for, sorry, my slides are messed up, my apologies. Next step, so this is where I'm gonna kind of hand it back to Marlene unless there's other questions coming in. But when it comes to the Fair Start for Kids Act report, it's going to be finalized, and then Marlene and her team will have it routed through internally within DCYF for review before it is finished and submitted to a legislative staff for review. And that's a similar process that we are currently following with the Access and Living Wage Implementation Plan. So I'm going to stop my screen share, Marlene, and hand it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. And yes, everything you said was correct. So basically, we received our community engagement team here at DCYF compiles all of the recommendations from ELAC members. And we actually had around 22 pages of recommendations. And we did a series of meetings to really focus on priorities for ELAC. And after we determined priorities from ELAC, we worked closely with our internal colleagues like Diana to align with current and existing work to really submit something powerful to the legislature. And if you are curious about all the sessions that we had, because I know there's a lot of new ELAC members, I'm just going to put all the dates where we had feedback gathering sessions from ELAC members, because we had several this year. And we even took it to Provider Support Subcommittee to really advise on provider-specific recommendations. If you're curious, they are there. The report is draft right now. It's sitting with our legislative team, and it will be submitted to the legislature after edits are done. But it's going to follow really similar outline to 2024 report. We're going to have an intro, background. Our members are listed, summary, and the recommendations that ELAC provided that align with the access and living wage work. Does anyone have any questions on next steps or the report or anything?
I do want to address the chat happening or the chatter happening in the chat. I understand the desire of finding online programs that may not be available within Washington State, and how to use our scholarship funds that are available to us. It is important for us to keep those funds as a Washington investment within Washington. However, I will say that, I see TIF is on as well. This is a conversation that can happen as an exploratory option. In the past, everything was within Washington, but we can, again, continue to explore, have the conversation as scholarship levels are based on, the stackable certificates or a bachelor's in ECE or similar degrees. So for those that are commenting about expanded education opportunities, I think that's fantastic. But we'll take this information back and have a conversation and follow the feedback loop to provide an update when that team has that information. So thank you again for the feedback, super helpful, and happy to share more about the changes, or again, access and living wage. We'll have bigger updates next 2 weeks, I think. But yeah, thank you for having me. That's it, Marlene, sorry.
Thank you, Diana. Yeah, and actually these questions are great because they tie into the next topic that we're going to be discussing, which is the staff qualifications work group updates. So let's welcome Gretchen Bruning, Workforce Supports Manager. She's going to be providing an overview around House Bill 1648. DCYF has been tasked with establishing a staff qualifications work group to help improve staff qualification requirements and the verification processes. So we'll receive an update on that work group and next steps for this work.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us. I am co-presenting today with Brett Skinner. My name, as Marlene said, is Gretchen Starr Brunig, and I serve as the Workforce Supports Manager in the Early Learning Division, and I'm also serving as the point person for this work group. So delighted to be here. I joined DCYF in 2024, and I'm joining you from Seattle. Brett, would you like to introduce yourself? And maybe Brett has not arrived yet. I know he had some conflicts today, so I'm just going to carry on here. So first topics. Today, we're just going to give you a very high-level overview of where we're at with the staff qualifications work group, the steps that we have taken to seek provider interest, and where we're at on the selection. When Brett joins us, he's going to be sharing a little bit more about the selection criteria and requesting some feedback on our decision-making loop. So we are really counting on ELAC and ELAC provider supports and IPEL to help us shape this work. I am hopeful and looking forward to being here on a very regular basis and getting your input into guiding how the work evolves with the work group. So next slide, please. So the key elements, as many of you probably already know, of this bill, new law, takes effect on July 27th, is that it extends the timeline for licensed and certified childcare providers to demonstrate their completion of their chosen pathway, which could include community-based training, that's called PACE. It could include higher education, or it could include experience-based competency. So in practice, the individuals who are employed in the roles of a center director, program supervisor, assistant director now will be eligible for the experience-based equivalency with a cumulative of 5 years of service by August 1st, 2030, which is intended to provide grace and allowance to those that have stuck with us through the pandemic because our staffing directors are still having difficulty fully staffing their programs. So then the next slide is more detail on this staff qualifications work group. There are 10 organizations, I'm sorry, 10 organizations that are listed in the work group, and these are the tasks that are required for the questions. We are currently drafting a work plan that includes the guiding questions for the work group to address. And so just at a high level, first is identifying measures to streamline and clarify requirements. This includes DCYF policies, procedures, communications about staff qualification, and the rules. And then the second topic is to offer options for PACE to be delivered online. And so, for example, what would the work group recommend to adapt content for asynchronous online delivery with pre-recorded modules? And then the third is on out-of-state education, training, and employment. The bill requires that DCYF provide processes for providers to submit resumes, training certificates, and letters from prior employers for verification in merit. And then overall, of course, it's to ensure inclusive access and viable choices of pathways, and whether providers can find enough information to make those choices, and what are the barriers that they are facing, and how can DCYF best address them. So we are on track to start this process in August, later in August, and this will continue, the work group will continue to meet through October of 2026, with the report due on December 1st of 2026. I jumped ahead. The next slide is the timeline. So the bill was signed on May 15th, and in the interim between May 15th and July 1, we leaned on this group and provider supports and IPEL to distribute a work group interest form. We have collected responses, and we will be presenting what we've heard back from providers in terms of the various demographics and categories. And then right now, as I noted, we're scoping the work group and defining the selection criteria and workflows. And that's why we are here today, to have you help us shape this. We will be selecting the work group members, the individuals, by July 31st. We're asking organizations to identify their representatives and alternates, so that we can stick with the deadline of July 31st, August 1st, to be informing everyone on the selection of members. Okay, next slide. So here are the organizations that were specifically called out in the legislation. And as I noted, we will be communicating hopefully this week with the organizations to ask for their representatives to identify who will be representing them on the work group, which is a total of 20 individuals. 20 individuals ish, that includes representatives from all of these organizations. So we will also ask the organizations to identify an alternate. And the meetings will take place every other month. We have given all of the details in the email that you will be receiving. And we're really looking forward to kicking this off. So we have drafted that invitation. It should go out this week. We will be connecting with each organization by phone and email just to make sure we can respond to any questions. And then the designated organization makes a final decision, and will let the DCYF know. Uh, we have already shared all the minimum topics that we will be looking at, but it's not exclusive to these topics. The guiding questions will help us keep on track and begin the feedback loop. All right. Is Brett with us, or should I carry on
Yep.
here?
Yep, I'm
Okay,
here.
cool. Perfect.
All right, next
So,
slide.
next slide, please.
Yeah, so thank you for having us. My name is Brett Skinner with Childcare Licensing Policy. And yeah, just super excited to work on this to continue to try to get things better aligned with the needs of our communities. And so just super excited to get into the work and continue to make this better. So we are going to talk a little bit about the selection process that's kind of already, in place and been in function. And we want to make sure that we're as transparent as possible, so that we have equitable representation, and two, trying to like sort of match who has time available, because that's sort of like a theme with everybody, right? Everybody has a lot going on, different things happening. So in terms of work group interest, we had 55 individuals that indicated their interest. So kind of made some charts and pies that represent where we got the interest from. And so as you look at it, you can kind of see that there are a lot of different groups that are on here. So you can see Chucker Center, not a part of a national chain. We had 26. Um, School age program 5, family home childcare 10. And so you can kind of start to see where the interest was coming in. Um, we had different languages that are represented. Within our family home providers, for instance, we had 5 English speaking, 4 Spanish speaking, and 1 Somali speaking. Um, and then you can kind of see on the right side the number of childcare providers by type that we kind of have in the state. And then we also want to like always kind of clarify that we also have licensed capacity by type. And I think that's something that people are aware of. But as we look at the numbers here, we can see that centers have, a lot more capacity of children. So that's potentially a lot more staff that are supporting those kiddos. Um, but you can also see that there are quite a few family home providers. And we just want to always kind of keep those numbers in mind as we're taking a look at these numbers. Um, can we go to the next slide? So this too is something that we think is really important. That's regional representation. And so you can kind of see by region what types of providers had signed up for the interest form. And so it's important that we, as a part of the creating that equity and making sure we represent the needs and the thoughts of everyone in the state, that we're kind of looking at this. So this information is being used. Obviously, King and Pierce County, there's a large number, but we want to make sure that voices are empowered throughout the entire state. Um, so we just wanted to make sure that we showed you that. If you want to go to the next slide you can. Um, Here we just kind of wanted to point out that 89% of the responses came from individuals in leadership roles, including CEOs and executive directors of organizations. But there was also some a parent, a coach lead, a manager support. Um, and Here are kind of some of the entries that we took as quotes. So I'd love to sit on the panel on this panel as staff qualifications have been a huge barrier for us finding qualified staff in the Vancouver area. How can I support my staff? What classes will be considered as credits? Does it have to be college level? As a childcare owner director of a small three-room daycare, I already pay 23 to 25 an hour. I can't pay much more. Who will oversee this and how will they keep us informed? And then finally, could the community pathway be made more accessible and expedited? This would be beneficial if colleges lose their scholarship funding or lack sufficient resources to support their students. It would also help retain those long-time excellent employees. So these were just pieces that were pulled out of the submission forms, and hopefully things we'll be able to talk about and tackle in the work group. Can we do the next slide? So in terms of the selection considerations, Gretchen kind of talked about there's the 10 types of providers that were mandated by the bill. Um, and so that's going to be a part of it. But then we're also going to have 10 providers that are outside of what those selections are. And this kind of outlines it. So at least one provider from each region, no more than one representative from the same organization, priority to individuals not currently serving on other advisory boards, priority to serve who belong in linguistically and culturally diverse communities, and priority to providers and facilities with greater license capacity. Um, and then I wanted to point out that in terms of these other 10 providers, what the group has proposed with those numbers are one sorry five childcare centers, um, three family home providers, one school age partner or school age program, and one tribal partner. Um, and then again, a lot of things went into that, looking at capacities, looking at the interests, looking at the different regions. So a part of that is, bringing that to this group and talking about that, um, and making sure that there's transparency around what we're doing with that, and hearing your feedback around this. Um, and then we're also going to be working with the tribes um, in some other capacities to make sure that they're being included in some ways that will work for all the different tribes that we work with, um, as well as being a part of that group. Um, and I don't want to overstep what I'm supposed to be talking about. I think Gretchen's gonna go into some of the dynamics of how the work group's going to work. Um, but let's go to the next slide. Um, so we kind of just wanted to see if you had any comments or thoughts on this piece of it. Um, and like we said, like we don't want we're trying to make sure that this isn't a secret what's happening. Um, and if you have any thoughts or feedback or concern, please bring those forward. And sorry, I did a terrible job looking at the chat while I was talking. Okay, sorry. So, are the public and private schools offering school and care to 0 to 6-year-olds represented on this chart? Sorry, Gretchen, do you know the answer
I
to
don't
the?
know the answer. I'm going to have to go
Okay.
back and check that. I do see Lois's question in here. I really appreciate all this feedback. Um, so Lois asks, why is the prioritization given to individuals currently not serving on other advisory groups? Having providers from ELAC or provider supports brings knowledge of how this came about, as well as prioritizing larger centers. This feels like gatekeeping. So the point that we're trying to make here is that we are relying on coming to ELAC on a very regular basis to expand the scope of the provider involvement, making sure that the voices that may not have been heard before are heard. And so we're going through very carefully to look at the individuals who did apply, making sure that there's a breadth of content knowledge and moving forward. Melissa, did you want to add something?
I would, if you don't mind, Gretchen. Thank you. And I just want to add to what Gretchen says here. If anything, and I've tried to explain, I did the same example for provider support. So I think it would behoove us all to have that conversation here as well. In addition to what Gretchen just said, is we're going to comply with the law, and then we're going to live into our practice, right? So what does that mean? It means that we're going to do what the law says, and in addition to that, we're going to build out a work plan, which is coming soon, but that really embraces the workflow that will be presented by Gretchen here in just a minute, that really lives into utilizing ELAC and provider supports as advisory groups in informing the recommendations directly coming out of the work group before decisions are made by the steering committee. And then the process from there, and again, Gretchen will go through this, is to then take those decisions back to the different advisory groups to explain what the decision was, because the decision will not be made before ELAC and provider supports have an opportunity to inform the recommendations. And how informing looks like depends on what the recommendations come out as. And then also recognizing that the process that we're proposing and the way that we're trying to create a work group for that will provide recommendations for all of you to review and respond to, not only helps us around creating a streamlined process for this lift that has to be done within existing resources, but it also helps us utilize our existing advisory groups, again, living into our practice and intention around really trying to incorporate wherever possible in this process, the advisory groups themselves. And so Gretchen will go through that so that you can actually see and live through that. But again, it's not in any way gatekeeping, simply because no decision will ever be made without ELAC providing their opinion about that recommendation or informing it in one way. Like an example is, yeah, we like this recommendation, but if you don't do X, Y, and Z, this is the problem, right? Or this is how best we'd be able to implement this. Or actually, you didn't see this. If we do this, we can't do this. So no recommendation goes before the steering committee unless first reviewed and informed by ELAC and provider supports, is really what I want you to take away from that, Lois.
Um, I would just also say I really appreciate you making that comment. And I think that that will be in our minds as we're looking at this. So I appreciate you saying that. Um, so thank you. Um, there were a couple things. So we did get word that the data charts represent everything that we have licensed, including both public and private. Um, and then is there some area that didn't apply? Oh, and say no, we have received applications from individuals across all regions. Okay, so thank you for answering that. Um, and then wondering about how library staff might be included in this work group, as many libraries are offering STARS training and would have good perspectives and experience with qualifications and trainings. That's an interesting one. I wonder if there's a way to get them into participation in some way. If you have suggestions or ways that maybe we could create a loop or create a way to include them in some way, that's an interesting idea. Um, and so I think that Courtney, did you get to see what you needed to see?
I did. I was typing back my notes and thank you for sharing it. I mean, I think I just raised that if I look at that and I look at what you guys have identified, it's barely a one-to-one ratio of providers to other departments, advocates, things like that. I might consider that one-to-one is a really may not, really prioritize the voice of providers, which I think has been our hiccup over the last couple of times that we've tried to do this, is that we have a lot less direct service providers at the table. And so we have lofty plans and ideas that are really hard to implement. And so I would just ask you to consider if that ratio is correct. But because when I look at the list of 12, you can cross off a couple of those because you've got them as providers, maybe 3 or 4. So it's barely a one-to-one. It might even be a little heavier on the other side.
Okay, good point.
It's exactly the type of input we were hoping for. So I'm so grateful for those that are sharing so much in the chat and verbally here. I wonder if we could proceed, and we will be on the part that is labeled, Jessica. It's actually comes right after the request for feedback. We're on the proposed decision-making flow. Yes, thank you. So we have created this flow chart, which is still a work in progress, and that's why we are bringing it to you. That we would start with there will be task groups that look at the research, generate some recommendations that then float up to the work group. And the work group will meet every other month. The work group will then vote yes, no, maybe, defer it. And then the staff, our DCYF staff, will summarize those recommendations to share with you. And after you have reviewed these recommendations and advised, we will then send those summaries to the leadership, to DCYF leadership. The leadership will review in light of our operating principles and the access to living wage implementation plan and make a decision about which ones are moving forward. Once we get through the communicating about the recommendations, then it comes back for a second feedback loop. So the next slide. After DCYF leadership decides, then we would prepare for this round of tracking and reporting using a specific format. We would lean on these advisory groups, ELAC, Provider Support, and IPEL, to share these decisions back with their communities, take them back to their centers, take them to other professional organizations that they serve on, and bring that feedback back to us to help shape the ways that these recommendations are worded. Once we've collected all of the thoughts and impressions, that we would share the decisions and feedback back with the steering committee leadership, and they would make their final decision. So I would love to hear your thoughts on ways that we could improve this, how you see ELAC being involved, what types of updates you would like us to bring to you. We envision you being, sharing your voice, hopefully on a monthly basis, either through a survey, a Smartsheet survey, or something like that about the recommendations so that we can stay informed by your experiences and perspectives. I moved my chat, so I'm not watching that right now. So let me just share internally how we're supporting this work. We have a core team. This is the worker bee team. We have multiple divisions represented on that team. We meet weekly. It includes government affairs, licensing division, early learning division, communications, broad brush. And this team is responsible for creating the work plan and monitoring status and correcting course of action based on feedback and keeping our DCYF leadership and you informed. We will be following the work plan to stage the implementation and address the most critical tasks first. Then we have the internal staff qualifications team, which is a bit of a step up in terms of thinking about policy decisions and specifically focusing in on data, um, focusing in on how merit will calculate and report on providers' experience, training, and education. Also focusing on communications and on any other related communities that we need to be engaged in refining these recommendations. And then we have the 1648 work group, which is what we've been describing today, that will represent both organizations and individuals, and they will review the recommendations that are lifted up by task groups that are topic specific subject matter experts and vote as to which ones move forward, as we just noted in the flow chart. And they, as I said earlier, will meet every other month starting August 25 until October of 26, at which point the report goes through its various stages for internal approval. So now it's your turn. Any questions or comments, ways that we can improve this process? Reading the room here, looking at people's faces.
Gretchen, I think there was some comments and questions in the chat. And let me see if I got it correct. I think, yeah, the last comment that was addressed was Jay Elizabeth just talked about connecting with the Library Association and having more a connection there. And I don't know if Olivia's has been answered. I think that's where we're at. So Olivia said the military community isn't referenced in the work group, organizations, and membership. It would be great to see providers participating in military fee assistance represented.
I concur. I think this is an excellent recommendation to bring back to the core team.
There's also a comment from Laura. I believe it's important that centers are prioritized since they serve the majority of the children and have huge payroll obligations. We need to ensure funds are available to retain staff. The process now is counterproductive. Staff educated by early childhood grants intended to improve quality, but staff just leave and enter the school districts because we can't afford to retain them. Center staff need represented. They do not get the extra monthly $2,200 bonus homes due, and we need equity to retain staff. And then there's some comments from Lois, but the recommendations will come from the work group, and that is where in-depth conversations will occur. I propose you remove the center size and advisory group criteria. Can you put other criteria back up so we can see if there are other call outs that should be addressed? There's like a couple comments around there. Well, Gretchen, feel free to answer any of these questions live if you want. We have plenty of time. Otherwise, our CE team is compiling all of these, and we'll be sharing with your team. But yeah, however you want to do it.
I would like to compile all of these, add them into the reflections that our team needs to weigh tomorrow when we are looking at the criteria. This is exactly the type of input that as I said earlier, that we were hoping to get. And I so appreciate the involvement here that I would love to keep this channel open. The next steps that we will be doing are sharing back with you the final selections and also the work plan and charter, so that we can get your guidance on the ways that questions are answered, make sure we're not missing critical questions, to guide the work group's development. So I don't have immediate answers because I would like to share this back with our core team.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Gretchen. And yeah, if you are here today and have additional questions or comments on any of this work, please put them in the chat. I'm also about to share a survey link in the chat, because you can definitely give us your thoughts there as well. So we're going to be compiling both of those. And what was I going to say? Yeah, we're going to be sharing this with our teams. So feel free to, oh, that's right. I was going to say something. The staff qualifications work is a standing agenda item for future ELAC meetings. So like Gretchen and team explained, there's alignment with that feedback loop. The work group is going to be focusing on these recommendations, and there's going to be alignment with ELAC, provider support. So this will definitely be brought up in all future ELAC meetings. And yeah, the next one is next month in August. But thank you, Gretchen and Brett, for your time today. And like I said, for everybody else, please continue either putting your thoughts or questions in the chat. We're going to be compiling them, sharing them with our DCYF teams, or you can just go to the survey and put your thoughts and questions on there as well. And let's see, this is like basically the end of our meeting. The next topic is an ELAC orientation for new members. I see a lot of existing members here today, so you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, you're welcome to go. And thank you everyone who joined. But if you want to stay and learn more about ELAC, we're going to do a really high level overview on ELAC. And we're going to do a full orientation at the next meeting, August 5th. Does anyone have any last comments or thoughts before we move into this other area? Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. And what we will do is save the chat, share it with our colleagues. We're also recording this meeting, so we're going to be following up with all ELAC members with the recording and any materials today and a survey. But actually, people do not like follow up after we send those emails. I'm putting the survey in the chat again, so take it right now since I have you here with me. But yeah, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay. Otherwise, you are free to go. If you're a new ELAC member and you want to learn more about ELAC, you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, like I said, we're going to do a full orientation at our next ELAC meeting, which is August 5th. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. I'm just going to give it a minute. I see folks transitioning out.
Hey, it's Naomi Wilson, sorry. And I we have our annual summer picnic today, so I'm kind of like multitasking. But I am a new ELAC member, but I'm happy to, I mean, I heard you say there's a more formal orientation.
Yes, yeah. So if you're a new ELAC member, you want to learn a little about ELAC, we're just going to do some really high level overview. We're going to cover just the high level stuff about ELAC, what to expect as a new member, the meeting structures, some resources, but the full orientation will happen at our next ELAC meeting, which is scheduled for August 5th. And we're going to be doing that in the morning time around 9:30 to 10:30. So yeah, today's just really high level. We're going to have a live Q&A. We really want to hear from new members. We've had a lot of transitions in the last year, and new membership comes on board at the end of June. So we just want to be mindful. We have new members, and I'm sure some people join our meetings. They're like, what should I do? So we just, we want to hold space for that and really learn from your Q&A today on what we should include in that full orientation August 5th.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yeah, so I see we have around 20 people, and let's get started. Let's get started. So welcome, everybody. If you are new to ELAC, or if you are not new to ELAC, but you just want an overview, I'm really glad that you're here. Like I mentioned just a second ago, this is a really high-level overview of the orientation that we are going to be doing August 5th. So it's really condensed, and a lot of the time spent here today will be on that Q&A. But as you can see on the slide, actually, is it really tiny? Yeah, no, you can still see it. So we're going to be talking about ELAC, the purpose of the advisory council, some of the membership meetings, really what to expect, and that Q&A. We'll be sharing some resources during that Q&A portion as well, and hopefully show you how to navigate to our webpage, which is full of great information. But yeah, we can go to the next slide.
And Tammy, I just wanted to acknowledge your chat that you have to transition out at 11. So this shouldn't take longer than 15 minutes or so. But if you have any questions and you haven't wrapped up yet, please feel free to interrupt, either come off mute or put it in the chat. But if you have any questions before you have to go, please do let us know.
Yes, and that goes for everybody. I see a first question. Are the meetings always at 9:30? And yes, they do start at 9:30, typically go till 1. And you'll hear me say that again when I get to that slide, because I'll probably just be reading my talking points. Okay, yes, so let's see, Early Learning Advisory Council. So ELAC is what we call the Early Learning Advisory Council. Was established through legislature in 2007, and it's really here to advise the department on statewide early learning issues to support a comprehensive, high-quality system for Washington's young children and families. And the council works in conjunction with the department, so they really work closely with us here on the CE team to assist in policy development and implementation that promotes alignment of private and public sector actions, objectives, and resources, and provides recommendations annually to the governor and legislature regarding the phased implementation of strategies and priorities identified in the FSKA, the Fair Start for Kids Act. That was Diana's presentation today. She was talking about aligning ELAC's recommendations for that FSKA report with current existing work here at DCYF. And that was a lot of words that really I took from the RCW. So if you're curious to learn more about ELAC, definitely read the full statute here. It goes into details about, who sits on the council, and it's a lot of information here. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. ELAC members. So ELAC members are very diverse. We have, on the council, we have parents, child care providers, health and safety experts. We have representatives from the library system, legislators, representatives. We have folks from the K-12 and higher education system. So it's very diverse. Some ELAC members are appointed by the governor. They are listed in that RCW that I just shared. And others include the regional advisors that represent the 10 early learning regional coalitions throughout Washington, through the Washington Communities for Children Network. So it's nice because the regional advisors act as liaisons between their coalitions and really ensure that those local needs are being met at the statewide level here at ELAC. And each seat has an appointing authority. It's called out in statute. The RCW lists them all. If you get overwhelmed by reading RCWs, we actually have a much easier list on our webpage, which actually I'm trying to find for you here, and I'll put it in the chat. So if you're curious to see like who's currently a member of ELAC, here's a pretty comprehensive list. We have some vacancies, which we need to do more outreach on. But I think Aaron's going to be talking about membership in this, or no, I'm talking about membership. But what else? Oh yeah, so this is why we're here, because members serve 2-year terms and they sunset on June 30th. So we have new members, but we've had a lot of transitions in the last year too. People move around, they leave their work sites. So we've had a lot of new members, and yeah, there are some vacancies. I'm just looking at the list here. If you have any recommendations, we are happy to reach out and try to fill these vacancies as well. Does anyone have any questions on the membership? I think we can move to the next slide then. And Erin, are you doing the meeting overview?
Yeah, I can do that. So hi everyone. I've been a little quiet this meeting, and I think most of you have met me via email, but in case we haven't officially met, my name is Erin, and I work with Marlene on the CE team, supporting ELAC and the subcommittees. So for a quick overview of the meeting structure, so we hold 6 meetings a year. Those are the regular meetings, usually the first Tuesday of odd months. We do review the annual schedule with members every year because sometimes there's big conferences or school breaks that create difficulties. So we do move things around if needed. We also hold special webinars as needed. Webinars like this, sometimes we'll have a special webinar to work on the FSKA recommendation report or anything else that might come up in between meetings. Also, we do a joint meeting with the provider support subcommittee in December. So the last meeting of the year is a joint meeting with both groups. Right now, they're all held virtually. In-person meetings are on the table for the future if ELAC members are interested in that. In our current budget reality, we're limited to what we can fund, but we are hoping to be able to offer maybe once a year in-person meeting, something of that nature in the future if ELAC members are interested in that. But for now, they are all formal. And the structure that they take is program staff from DCYF, sometimes people from outside agencies such as OSPI or DOH pop in to gather feedback. But for the most part, it's DCYF program staff. They come provide presentations in order to gather feedback on specific bodies of work or upcoming changes. Sometimes these presentations are updates, but we do try to make sure that the agenda items on each ELAC meeting agenda do involve members weighing in some way. But at times they are updates that are relevant to ongoing work or conversations that ELAC is participating in. So these meetings are open to the public. We see a lot of the time that ELAC members oftentimes like to encourage other local childcare providers or early learning professionals to pop in for certain meetings, especially if there's topics that are of particular interest to their communities. When the times come that we do need to address committee business, such as, voting on executive committee leadership or revising attendance policies or taking any formal ELAC action, things of that nature, we handle by holding an executive session meeting, which is not open to the public. Those meetings are just open to ELAC members, regional coalitions, and DCYF staff. So our practice here at DCYF is guided by the two-way communication protocol. So that is a fancy way of saying that we are committed to not just receiving feedback and input, but also engaging with that feedback and following up on it. So that's what we commit to at DCYF, is that when you do provide feedback or input on a particular topic, that we will follow up with you and give you updates on whether that feedback's being implemented. If not, why not? What's the current status of the work? So we try to keep that conversation going. And then as well, ELAC members, depending on your specific role, are expected to communicate with their local communities in their regions, in their fields, and share pertinent information, talk to people in their field, and at times elevate concerns or questions that you're hearing in your local community and bring them to ELAC. So just keeping that conversation going and making sure that we're following up, and that when people do give us feedback, it doesn't just fall into a black hole and they never know what happens to it. Let's see. And one of the ways that we do that is the feedback loop. So that's a document that you see during every ELAC meeting. That's it can be a little bit of a kitchen sink document at times, but generally speaking, items in the feedback loop are follow-ups from the previous meeting. So if there were outstanding questions that were asked, outstanding comments that need to be followed up on, or feedback provided during that meeting, we will work with the internal program staff to get answers to outstanding questions, provide updates on requests, and also provide status updates on input received. And I think next slide. So like Marlene said, on our DCYF webpage here, I don't know if this has already been put in the chat, but just the ELAC webpage. That's a place you can go to get some of the quick links. So you can look up the statutory language, the membership list. You can also pull up the ELAC charter that goes into much more detail about the machinations and logistics of ELAC and how it works. And you'll also see all the minutes from the last 2 years, and you can review the documents from all the meetings in the last 2 years if that's helpful to you. So as Marlene said, we are going to be going through everything in more detail, going through more of the process pieces and going a little bit deeper on member roles and responsibilities. But in the meantime, if you do have any kind of high-level questions, the website is a good place to go. Also, Marlene and I are always available. No matter how small the question is, we are always available. So you can reach out to the CE inbox. You can reach out to either one of us personally. And we're always happy to even jump on a call if you want to talk some things through. But in the meantime, kind of the high-level information, I recommend going to the website. So I know that was kind of a lot. Oh, good. I'm glad it was helpful. there's more to go through, but I think that should be enough to get you started at least. But if there's any questions, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and you can either throw a question in the chat or unmute and share verbally. But if you have any questions, let us know.
If I can go ahead and just jump in with a question, I don't want to speak over anyone. But I and this may not be a question for you, just because I'm sort of new to this. I thought I would just put it out there. So I'm a Washington Library Association representative, and so part of what I'm doing is reporting back to WLA's board. So I just was curious, what might be some things that ELAC and DCYF would want to make sure were communicated back, and how could I sort of make that as effective and efficient as possible. And so it could be, something that we maybe discuss over a period of time, but just wanting to kind of make that channel of communication as effective as possible. So I appreciate any thoughts you have on that.
That is such a great question, and your mind is definitely in the right place. I love that. So, but I'm not sure I can give you a straightforward answer on that, because I think I would really kind of defer to the early learning community as far as what they would really like to escalate or elevate to the library system. I know some things come up like STARS hours and community events, and so when I see something like that kind of popping up intermittently, that you might want to like single out and bring to the board. Other than that, what previous ELAC members have found really helpful when they do have some kind of reporting structure is the recommendation, the deliverables, right? So the recommendation reports, reflection reports. We've had ELAC members come to us before and say, hey, I really want to report to my organization about the conversation we've been having about this specific topic. And even though we don't currently have, a write-up just about that, we can make one, right? We've written whole, 10-page reports before because ELAC members have said this would be really helpful for me to have in my hand to show the work that we've been doing, but also like kind of advocate for the work that we've been doing. So I know that's kind of a big answer, but that's how I see DCYF and CE's role is we can help produce any deliverables or summaries that might be helpful to you alongside the deliverables that ELAC will already be sharing. And then besides that, I would really turn to the early learning community as far as issues that might be particularly relevant for the library system.
Great, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to remind this group to just take the survey if you haven't done so. I'm going to put it in the chat again because we do have a question on there. What questions do you have as an ELAC member? We're going to do the full orientation, so this really helps us, tackle those when we do that full one. Any more questions? I think this is like the shortest meeting we've had, actually. Another thing that I was just thinking about is logistically, when DCYF or any of our groups are any like DCYF teams seeking for feedback, they'll typically work with us and we will email ELAC members. So you will see emails from ELAC saying action item, feedback, like requesting feedback. So please, those are really important. Those are typically they go back to the teams, they read the exact, feedback received from members. So I just ask that members really review emails, especially when we're asking feedback. Otherwise, they can find really anything on the webpage, but really those are important because that's how we communicate with members and when we want your feedback and follow-up actions, that's really how we do it. But yeah. Any more questions? If you guys are planning to go to the August 5th meeting, that's going to be a full meeting. We're going to do the full orientation, like I've mentioned like 10 times already, but we do have a new ELAC executive committee. Actually, most of them are here today. Most of them are new to ELAC as well, which is really exciting. And they're going to be introducing themselves during that meeting. So it's a good time to start. A lot of changes, a lot of new faces at ELAC, and it's going to be a good year. Don't let me sit in silence because I will just keep talking. I'm curious, we don't have our full executive co-chairs here today, but we do have several. Do you guys want to come off mute and introduce yourselves?
Hello, everybody. My name is Hannah Bruning, and I work as the Early Learning Community Engagement Manager at Catholic Charities in Wenatchee, and I also co-chair the North Central Early Learning Coalition and sit on as a representative for that coalition as part of ELAC, and I'm excited to be part of this group.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Hutton. I'm located in Southwest Washington. I'm a program manager for support and early learning for families, as well as I do a lot of work with the regional coalition as well, WCFC, and all of that fun stuff. It's nice meeting you all.
I'll go. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Brian Knowles. I'm an early infant mental health consultant with Hold and Hope through Bright Spark. And I also now sit on the ELAC board as a committee member. I am just really excited to, start building and continuing to grow and bring kind of insight into early childhood mental health into this space. Great to meet everyone.
I see Colleen is here. She's not technically on the co-chair, but she does work a lot with the coalitions and often has helped our new regional coalition representatives on the executive committee like on board with us. And I'm curious if Colleen wants to introduce herself. People might be on the go. So if I call on you and you're on the go, that's totally fine. You do not have to. Well, yeah, that's all we have for you today. Like I said, super high level orientation. It took way shorter than I actually thought it would. And the full one will be provided at our next meeting. And like Erin said, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out anytime, like directly to us or to our CE inbox, which I actually should put on here. Let me put my email address really quick, and then I will add the CE inbox. We get all types of questions on our community engagement inbox. We get questions around programmatic updates, things around staff qualifications, licensing questions, and it's because you will see a lot of these topics come up at ELAC, and we may not be the subject matter experts on the on how to answer these, but we will find you the correct staff member to connect you with. So either or, feel free to email us and take the survey and let us know if there's any other questions you have so we can embed them in the full orientation happening in August. Two weeks from now, 2 weeks away, ELAC meeting. All right, well, thank you everyone. I hope everyone has a good day and don't hesitate to reach out, and I will see you in 2 weeks.